Okay, thanks, Claire. Good morning, everybody, and welcome to our information webinar on Call 7 for DTIF. Following our launch by Minister Burke recently, we're delighted to have our nuts and bolts session today to talk detail and to walk you through the requirements of the call. I'm just going to give it a minute for more people to join us online. Our numbers are zooming up, so just bear with us for a minute. Okay, at 10:02, I think we'll get started. So, as I say, a very good morning to all of you joining us on the webinar this morning. We're delighted to have the opportunity to do an information session on the 7th call of the Disruptive Technologies Innovation Fund. It's been a while coming, and so we're delighted to be back in action as a team here, and we hope that the opportunity is really huge for all of you. In terms of our webinar today, what we aim to do is to take you through a little bit of the background of DTIF for those of you who are new to it, the objectives, where we are at the moment. We'll tell you a little bit about the team who are here to help you in your interactions with us and in your preparation to apply to the call. And essentially then we'll walk through the call detail. And our format for today is very much a short presentation and a very detailed question and answer session, which we hope will be quite interactive with the team. So you have a Q&A function at the top of your screen, and you can put questions in at any time, but we'll take the questions at the end of our presentation. So just as a start to introduce you to the team, my name is Imelda Lampkin. I manage the DTIF Fund at Enterprise Ireland. I'm joined today by my colleagues Jackie Fitzgerald, Claire McKenna and Declan McGee. Gerard Land is off-site today and not participating, but these are the members of the DTIF team who are our client-facing staff. And then we have Sarah O'Brien and Maria Salto Galdon, members of the core team. We're the team who were there to help you as you apply for DTIF, and we wanted you to have a one-to-one relationship with us, so you know who you're dealing with. I'm also joined today by other colleagues from Enterprise Ireland with a very special expertise. One is Ger Roach on the side of commercial evaluation, and another is Owen Hanrahan, who is our expert on state aid at Enterprise Ireland, and they'll join us in the Q&A session. So without further delay, I'm going to introduce Claire McKenna, who's going to take us through the presentation today. The team will go off camera while she does it, and we'll be back on to answer your questions. And as I say, keep your questions coming. No question is too small. We're here to go through them today. So over to you, Claire.
Thanks, Imelda. I'm just confirming everyone can hear me and can see the start of the slideshow there. Is that
perfect, Claire?
Perfect.
I can see it and slides are perfect.
Okay, perfect. So hi everyone, thanks a million for joining us for our webinar today. As Imelda said, we're very excited about kicking off Call 7. So my name's Claire McKenna, as Imelda mentioned, and I'll be kind of going through a little bit of what DTIF's about, as well as some steps for application and a couple of kind of tips as well. So the Disruptive Technologies Innovation Fund, it's a 500 euro million challenge-based fund, and it's managed by the Department of Enterprise, Trade and Employment, but administered here by us at Enterprise Ireland. So to date, we've had 6 calls, and we have allocated a total of 370 million over that time across 104 projects, and this includes involvement from 393 partners in Ireland. So as we mentioned, Call 7 is now open, and this year it's a little bit different in that it's a rolling call. So applications can be accepted from any time from now until the end of April 2025. And we hope that by having this longer application timeframe, that applicants have more time to interact with their agency developmental advisor to make sure that DTIF is right for them. So I'll briefly go over what the objectives of DTIF are. So I suppose the main objective is to provide large-scale funding for collaborations on technology-based disruptive innovation that has the potential to alter markets, alter the way a business operates. It could involve new products or new business models. And really then we hope that by providing this funding, we're de-risking innovation and reducing the costs associated with innovation. We would hope that any projects that do receive DTIF funding would be demonstrating commercial impacts, around 3 to 5 years after project completion. Also, it's hoped that DTIF will help to deliver technology-based solutions on research undertaken in Ireland and to build upon that research undertaken in Ireland. And then that obviously would be as a result of fostering deeper and wider RD&I collaborations across Ireland, and in turn also preparing Irish enterprises and the Irish innovation ecosystem to engage in partnerships at the European level and global level, and to prepare Ireland for being involved in deployment and development of disruptive technologies globally. So things we get asked a lot. We got asked a lot about what is disruptive technology and how do we define it. So our definition is that disruptive technology is that which has the potential to drastically alter markets and their functioning and significantly alter the way that business operates. While it involves a new product or process, it can also involve the emergence of a new business model. And we feel very strongly that disruption, it's not just about the technology, but it's the combination of technology and business model innovation. So this is quite a word-heavy slide, so I do apologise, I won't be reading it all out, but really the point I want to drill home here is that the fundable activity under DTIF, it must fall within the scope of industrial research or experimental development. And what we mean by industrial research is it's planned research or critical investigation aimed at the acquisition of new knowledge and skills for developing new products, processes or services, or for bringing about a significant improvement in existing products, processes or services. Experimental development, we have here that it means the acquiring, combining, shaping, and using existing scientific, technological, business, and other relevant knowledge and skills for the purpose of producing plans and arrangements or designs for new, altered, or improved products, processes, or services. And if you see here on either side of this table, we have red writing. So the first, on the left-hand side, we have fundamental research and an X, and then on the far right, we have product development and an X. So really what we're trying to get across here is that DTIF should not be used to support fundamental research alone or product development. It's really that in-between piece, the industrial research and experimental development, that we want to hit with DTIF. So I know from looking at the registration list that many we have many people who've availed of DTIF before attending today, so just wanted to go over some changes from the earlier calls. So as we mentioned at the start of the presentation, it's a rolling call this year. So the call opened on May 7th, and applications will be accepted on an individual basis until the end of April 25. And we are this year as well, we really want to drive home the point that applicants must be interacting with their agency representative, whether that be UDROS, IDA or Enterprise Ireland, before preparing their applications. And there is another change here as well, and it's effective from January 1st of this year. There has been changes to the General Block Exemption Regulation, or GBER, and this is going to be applied to DTIF projects, which is in line with all R&D offerings nationally. So in respect of the R&D costs, companies are now going to have to choose from one of two models, and they are the simplified overhead model or the defined overhead model. And this will all be detailed in our guide to applicants, which we'll have linked at the end of the presentation as well. So this is a brief overview of the process of applying for DTIF funding. So we have 7 distinct stages, and I'll just quickly go through them each here. So at the start, before even hitting submit on your application or drafting up your application, we really want consortia or clients to talk with their agency representative and discuss whether they're at the right stage of their development for DTIF, and to make sure that they have the capacity and the financial resources there to engage with DTIF. Once that conversation has happened, we ask that the lead partner will submit the DTIF proposal. We have an online application system, which we'll have linked here as well. And at the time of proposal submission, we also ask that the other members of the consortium, as well as the lead, submit their key financial statements. So then we move on to the eligibility check. So the DTIF team here at Enterprise Ireland will check for eligibility, and if the project passes eligibility, it'll go for evaluation. So our evaluation process is split into 2 steps. So the first is, we call it a remote evaluation. So that's where 3 independent evaluators will score the written proposal against 4 criteria, which I will show you in the next slide. And then only those above the threshold for this will proceed to the next step of evaluation, which is panel interviews. So these panel interviews will involve the consortia coming in and preparing a 10-minute video, and then they'll have an interview session with the independent evaluators as well. And if passing that stage, then we will move on to the authorised piece, where the DTIF Advisory Board considers the rated project lists and makes recommendations for the Minister for authorisation of the project. Once that happens, the project should start within 3 months, and the offer for the funding or for drawdown is valid for 12 months from approval. So you have 12 months to get the project up and running following the Minister's announcement. And I just wanted to note here that you'll see 2 arrows underneath the middle pieces of the process stages there. And that is all about the financial status of the companies being assessed. So this happens in parallel with the eligibility check and the evaluation part of the process. But while that's the formal checking of financials, we really do want companies to engage at the consult stage with their DA or their developmental advisor to talk about whether they're in the financial position as well to avail of DTIF funding. So as I mentioned, we will, the evaluation stage will score the proposals against 4 criteria. So we have the strength of the disruptive technology, the excellence of the overall proposal and approach, the economic impact and sustainability, and then the quality and efficiency of the collaboration. So we have 2 of these criteria, the strength of the disruptive and then also the economic impact and sustainability. They are weighted higher, but all 4 criteria will be assessed at remote evaluation and then again at the panel interview stage as well. So here we just have a few little things to note if you're thinking about applying. So in terms of the consortium must comprise at least 3 independent partners, and one of these partners must be an SME and at least one other enterprise partner. The consortium may consist of just enterprises or enterprises with one or more research performing organization, so RPO for short. And then, it's really important that all of the partners are collaborating on common aims and objectives. We don't want, a bunch of different consortium members going off and doing different things that don't have a common aim. And again, there should be a strategic rationale for the consortium structure as well. A couple of notes on funding parameters. So the consortium must request DTIF funding of at least 1.5 million, and it's over 3 years. That's the project term. SMEs can claim up to 50% of their eligible costs, with large companies can claim up to 40% of eligible costs. RPOs, research performing organizations, can claim up to 100% of their eligible costs, but it's important to note that the RPOs can't receive more than 50% of the total DTIF grant aid to the project. A couple of other items to note, and again, these are all detailed in the guide to applicants. But enterprises cannot be undertakings in difficulty. So this piece will be assessed during the financial assessment. And as it says here, look at the Call 7 guide for more information on this. Early stage companies, they must have the operational and financial capacity to participate. So again, coming back to that consult stage, it's really important that you're checking in with your developmental advisor to make sure that you do have the operational and financial capacity for DTIF. Pre-finance. So pre-finance can be provided for small companies where necessary, and applicants must have sufficient non-committed assets to cover the liability of receiving the pre-finance. It's just important to note here as well that it isn't a guarantee as well. And then clinical trials. Clinical trial activity may be funded under DTIF up to the pilot study phase 2A, in line with the EU state aid definition of industrial research. A final note as well is that any successful consortium will be asked to complete a consortium agreement. And we have a template here linked at the end of this presentation for you to have a look at to see what you're kind of going to be required to sign as well if successful. It's a mandatory part of the DTIF process, and modifications to the consortium agreement are rare, and they can only really be made on an exceptional basis only. Modifications, that is. So here we have our list of information. So we have the department's homepage there, which has lots of information about the DTIF fund. And then we have guidance documents here. So our guide for applicants, which I've referenced a few times. We have the indicative application form. So as I noted, it is an online submission system, but this application form will give you an idea of what's going to be asked in there. The consortium agreement template, the UID, so undertakings in difficulty questionnaire that you'll be asked to fill out, and then finally the submission link where you can actually submit your application there. So I'll leave it at that in terms of presentation. So we have some time now for Q&A. So what I'm going to do is actually, before I say that, I should just say, please do reach out to us. We're here to help, and we're here to answer questions you may have as well. We hopefully will have quite a good Q&A session now, where a lot of questions will be answered, but we are here to answer questions as well offline. So please do reach out if something isn't covered here today. This webinar will also be uploaded too. So hopefully your questions will be covered, and I'm going to stop sharing now and bring the team back in to help answer some questions. So hopefully that has stopped sharing. Yeah,
it has, Claire. Yeah, perfect.
Great. Hi everyone. Okay. So yeah,
so
how's
Claire,
the Q&A?
If you like to give you a break, I'll take the first question and then we'll take them as we come. So the first one that I see, and actually, Sarah, you can keep us straight as we go that we're not missing any. But can you please talk us through the process for where a consortium application is successful? And then there's a second question, can the template consortium agreement be amended or certain terms mandatory? So just in terms of where a consortium application is successful, our typical approach is that We will ask for further information with regard to the application we've received at that stage. So, for example, we look for detailed project cost sheets. We look to have the consortium agreement drafted and ready for signature. If applicants are looking for pre-finance, we'll discuss pre-finance at that stage. All with a view to essentially generating individual contracts for the project partners and getting the project up and running. And exactly as Claire had said, hopefully within a 3-month period. That's our optimum approach. Just the second one there, the template consortium agreement is mandated for use. And so you should be very clear on that. We developed the consortium agreement template to work for academic institutions, for example, and to work for the majority of companies. And by doing that, what we're hoping is that we're saving legal costs, time associated with legal investigations for small companies in particular. And so it's mandated for use. We do make a small number of changes where, for example, a multinational corporation may have obligations back to the parent company or the lead R&D site, and we will make changes where that's needed, but it should be a minimum. So maybe that's that one. The next one at the rolling call, Jackie or one of the others, would you like to take it?
So the next question is, as it is a rolling call, will awards be made between now and next April? If so, are there specific deadlines? Our approach to this is, well, first of all, the call is open. It opened on the 7th of May. You have the link in the presentation now, and it's also on the Department of Enterprise, Trade and Employment's website on the DTIF pages. So from today, you can go into the submit.com online application system and start your application. Our intention is to act on applications as we receive them. So as soon as we receive an application, we have no idea from day one whether we're going to get 10 applications, 50 applications, or 2 applications. But our intention is to deal with them on a case-by-case basis as they come in. And that means bringing them through the process that Claire showed you on her slide with the 7 stages. However, if halfway through the year or halfway through our next 12 months, we realize that we have a batch of 10 or 15 or 20 applications, well then we will take a view then, or we will review that as the call is rolling throughout the year. And we may introduce a kind of a monthly meeting of our advisory board, perhaps. I mean, really, the answer to that question, it depends on the volume of applications that we get. But from the outset, our intention is to act on all applications as we receive them. So
Thanks,
if
Jackie.
that's okay,
Yeah.
we can. Who will own? We'll go to the next question. And who will own any IP, intellectual property generated through this process? Imelda has talked to you at the very start of the Q&A about the consortium agreement. The consortium is the group who decides who owns the IP. And again, you have the copy of the template. Start familiarizing yourself with that documentation really from today, so that you will see what your partners will be expected to, the information that is expected to be provided in that consortium agreement and what will work for your consortium. So the next question.
Yep, yeah, I'll come to the next one, perhaps, Jackie, and we might invite Ger in as well. So the financial requirements for a company applying to DTIF, the starting point is that DTIF is based on a grant aid model where we're covering 50% of the costs. So companies participating need to be very clear that they're going to be able to bring 50% of the funding to the project, for example. It's based on a model which is around incurred costs. So the costs are primarily incurred and grant claims are submitted and they're reimbursed subsequently. So people in companies need to think that through. Are the companies large enough and capable enough to participate in a funding model like that? There are particular financial requirements for participation in any grant-aided scheme that relate to, for example, a European requirement we have under the undertakings in difficulty assessment, and maybe Ger might come in and just comment on that.
Yeah, so the undertaking difficulty rule, it's not an EI policy issue, it's an EU state aid rule. In essence, what it says is that for a company, they cannot have lost more than half of their share capital. So if a company has losses, accumulated losses, maybe accumulated over a number of years through spending on research and development or whatever, those losses cannot equate to more than 50% of the shareholders' funds of the business. Now, we look at each case in itself, look at the accounts of the company and so on, to try and get an understanding of that and to test basically under the legislation as to whether the company is UID or not. So there's information there's a questionnaire within the pack that you need to look at. And I suppose what we would say to people is that if you think you are, if you think you might fall into the category of UID, talk to your advisor at the earliest possible opportunity so that we can then start to have a look and assess that at the earliest stage.
Thanks a million, Ger. And a comment I would make is when you're forming a consortium and you may have 2 or more companies within it, be very cautious and very clear about which partners you're bringing into the consortium, because what you want to know is that all partners are going to be financially capable to do the project. Not that you'll take an extensive period of putting in an application, getting to contract, and finding that one partner with a core role in your project isn't going to be able to participate. Because it brings everybody down. It'll bring your project down if there's something like that going on. So for academic partners or for large company partners, work that out very carefully to ensure that you understand the capability, the capacity of the companies to work with you.
I can take the next one. Well, the next one is actually about reviews being triggered periodically, which I think Jackie covered in her answer regarding the awards. But the next one there is, does the 3-month period to start the project commence from the signing of the consortium agreement? So actually in my presentation, the 3-month, what that referred to is from ministerial announcement to getting yourself up and running and up to contract. But from signing of the consortium agreement, there's a year before that you have a year deadline to get your project up and running. So that's probably where the confusion came there. The next one, regarding pre-financing, is this for 30%? What do the timelines for this look like in terms of applying and then getting the actual support?
So again, maybe coming in there, we have the potential to give advance payment to small companies only, and we do an assessment to check that those companies are suitable to get a pre-finance payment. So the minute a company has been approved, we can start that process to determine if they're eligible to get pre-finance up to 30%, a third of the grant. And we aim to do it as soon as possible so that the pre-finance is going in as early as possible into the project. And I see maybe the next one, regarding the early stage companies, can the operational capacity be built after the submission review? A very cautionary note, I would say, is again, we're looking for companies that have the financial and operational capacity to participate in the project. From the time of approval, you have a very fixed deadline to get your project up and running. And so if a company doesn't have the operational capacity at this stage, and you're looking to bring that company into your consortium, you should be very cautious about that approach. The company, you know, is applying to DTIF, which is one of the largest scale R&D opportunities available within the country. And so if that company has had very little experience of R&D of any scale, are they going to be a suitable and capable participant in your project? So a cautionary note, I would say, on that one.
So the next question.
Yeah, Jackie, work away.
Presumably the budget will be consumed over the period to April 2025, so it would be wiser to apply sooner rather than later. Needless to say, we are encouraging all consortia to apply as soon as possible. So the sooner you start talking to your agency executive, be that your executive in the IDA, Údarás na Gaeltachta, or Enterprise Ireland, and the sooner you start working with your partners on preparing your proposal and submitting it to us, the better. Unless you have anything else to add to that, Imelda, but I think that probably is the advice.
Exactly. And just in terms of, you know, I think the suggestion there is that the DTIF budget will be consumed and there mightn't be further funding. You know, we've funded 100 plus projects to date. We have a substantial budget available. And so, you know, I think the rationale for applying sooner rather than later is not so much associated with the fund budget as with getting your project up and running as quickly as you can.
So the next question, Imelda,
is can you just add to that in terms of the rolling call? It's designed to give more time for consortia and better proposals to be put together. So, you know, I think I follow the advice and get it in as quick as possible, but look after the fit of your consortium partners and the project itself, so the quality is there.
Exactly, and it gives that opportunity, we hope. So I fully agree. Jackie, you were going to take the next one.
Well, it's just, can you explain more on pre-finance, please, Imelda? I think you probably have done that one, so let's move on. The next one, can a public authority such as a city council take part as an enterprise partner? If so, what level of funding would they be able to access? The answer to that is no. A public authority is not likely to be an eligible client for DTIF because they cannot be a client of either Enterprise Ireland, Údarás na Gaeltachta, or IDA Ireland. Only agency clients can take part or can apply for DTIF. So the next one, and I can see, Imelda, we have quite a lot of questions, so we might just, can an EI-backed early stage startup be part of a consortium with larger SME lead entities and third level entities? If so, what are the criteria? It sounds to me that this EI-backed early stage startup is an Enterprise Ireland client who's considering taking part in a consortium with larger SME lead entities and third level entities. So that is the eligibility criteria. It sounds like that you would meet that.
Yeah. And maybe, Jackie, coming to the next one, partners starting at different times. So under the consortium agreement, the consortium will define a project commencement date, and that's the start date for that project, and the clock starts ticking from then on. So they will finish at the same time. So it's fairly straightforward. The next one, at what stage of the project is the funding made available? So the typical model for DTIF is that companies will incur costs, and on a 12-monthly basis, they'll submit a financial claim to reimburse those costs. That's the typical format for large companies or other companies. For a proportion, they will have applied for pre-finance, and they will have got their pre-finance, a third of the grant up front, which acts as a float for them. And for academic researchers, for research performing organisations, publicly funded, we also provide an advance payment in that case with 12 monthly reporting intervals. And for us, we moved to 12 monthly reporting intervals to make life as easy as possible for both our project participants and ourselves as agency teams within Enterprise Ireland.
I can take the next one there. Is there a maximum budget for a project? There isn't, but there is a minimum, which is 1.5 million. And the next piece there is, and what happens if the available fund runs out before the 30th of April 25? I think Imelda has already covered that. But coming back to the budget piece as well, the sweet spot, or not sweet spot, but the average kind of project amount we see, I think, is between 2 to 3 million total project, but there's projects that are much bigger than that as well. So yeah,
we always encourage bigger projects.
Yeah.
It's one of the opportunities within DTIF is to do something at a really large scale.
Will I take the next one? What do you expect an application? What do you expect application processing timescales to be from application to interview to acceptance rejection? Going on our previous calls, 1 to 6, I would say typically 3 months. So that means you'll submit your application, eligibility checks. If you pass that stage, go to remote evaluation. If you pass that stage, come to panel interview. If you pass that stage, approval by the DTIF Advisory Board, onward approval by the Minister, can typically take from start to finish 3 months. And the next one, can an SME participate in multiple consortia, and what is the budget limit? There isn't a budget limit, and we do see some companies taking part in more than one consortia. Will the consortium have to provide a state aid statement to receive the funding from an independent reviewer? And I'll give that one to you.
Yeah, exactly, Jackie. Do you know, I was going to invite Owen to come in, because actually I see Owen also has a comment around the scale of project under the R&D framework. So Owen Hanrahan, would you like to join us? Yeah.
You're very good, thank you. And I suppose just to preface it in terms of all the good work the guys have done, so just to commend you on what you've done so far. So I think the important thing for the group is to be mindful that this is done under EU stated rules. So we have to be mindful of EU stated rules, Irish legislation, as well as what the DTIF is looking to achieve as part of that overall structure. So I suppose I just wanted to make that point, Imelda, just in terms of what you're looking at, and also in the context of, I suppose there are limits under the R&D guidelines. So what we operate as under the general block exemption regulation. So it covers, in the current period, it's covering 2023 to 2026, and it's an iterative process that goes through. But in terms of where you're at the moment, it's covering that period, and there are limits to it in terms of what the maximum amounts are. And I'll just post them in the chat if that's okay, because they're just slightly different figures, if that's okay. According to the different category. Is that okay? Yeah, thank you.
Sounds good, Owen.
I might take the next one.
Yes,
okay, Imelda.
Yeah.
Question is, are there any research priorities outside of the normal Ireland research priorities and national strategic outcomes? This is an open call. There's no focus or on any particular research area, and past applications have been heavy on the health and well-being, but we're looking beyond that in terms of right across the technology areas. So no priority given.
Exactly. And maybe the next one, have the rules for overhead calculations changed for HEIs? No change there, but there have been changes for overheads for companies. And for anybody who has applied to DTIF previously and was aware of the application form, the form has become a little bit more complex because of the changes to the overheads. You'll see that we have slightly separate listings of participants with the budget tables. So just be very careful when you're looking at them that you're completing the right ones, and we're here to help if you have any issues.
So the next one, what are the TRLs and or MRLs? The TRLs are from TRLs 3 to TRL 9. And again, you'll find more information on that in the guide for applicants. What is the number of projects intended to receive funding through this call? Is it possible for collaborators to participate in multiple applications? The answer, I think we've answered that already, haven't we?
Yeah,
There
and
isn't a
again,
specific
it's just
number.
that cautionary note for anybody who's aiming to participate in multiple applications. If you're successful in multiple applications, have you got the capacity to actually do each of those projects? Because if you find you have a partner who subsequently pulls out, you're left with a partial consortium that will fall, because the complete project, as approved, won't be able to go ahead. So just be very careful to understand who you're working with and how capable they are.
And the next one, can non-lead partners be foreign companies or universities? All enterprise partners taking part in DTIF must be clients of the agencies that we've said already and must be based in Ireland. So companies based outside of Ireland cannot take part in DTIF. The universities, there's a list in the appendix in the guide for applicants which shows the recognised RPOs that can take part. Next
and
one.
the next one, the clients. And just to point out, I see a comment there. What I think is meant is IDA, EI, UDROS, LEO. So the eligible clients, the agencies are IDA, Enterprise Ireland, and UDROS. LEOs are not eligible client companies. And, I see what are the requirements here. So for anybody who's interacting with the company, you should be asking the company to contact their development advisor at the agency to ensure and to clarify their agency status, for example, that they're eligible to participate. That would be a good starting point. If you're working with a company where the company is telling you that they don't have a development advisor, they should be making contact with the agency to determine what is the status. And we can help you with that if you've no other starting point, but there are multiple entry points through the agencies. So they should be, a client company should be able to find the route in. Maybe the next one, what kind of deliverables are expected throughout the lifetime of the project? I think people who are generally operating in R&D circles are very used to a typical R&D work plan with set deliverables and milestones over, for example, a 2 to 3 year period. If you're not familiar with that, what I would propose is that you would interact with somebody who is used to that. The excellence criterion is very much around a really clear and detailed work plan with clear deliverables. So you need to really understand that. You'll get an indication of it from the requirements of our evaluation process.
So the next one, you went through the 7 stages of applying for the DTIF. Typically, how long does this process take? And I think I mentioned typically we would say 3 months to get through that process. Imelda, would you agree with that?
Yeah, exactly.
Is there a mechanism for finding suitable partners, e.g. expression of interest site? We have in the guide for applicants, I think, a signpost, don't we? We certainly did for call 6 anyway. We had a signposting exercise where we point you to the Knowledge Transfer Ireland site through, there is a Disruptive Technologies portal that is run by the IDA, and there are a number of sources like that that we do some signposting to. Where people can use, we don't undertake that as an activity ourselves. We leave that to partners themselves to find their own other partners in consortia. But we do signpost you to some sources that may be of use to you in finding partners. It's also worth saying, important to say, our parent department's website, which is enterprise.gov.ie/DTIF has a fantastic section up there now. It has a dashboard that our colleagues have prepared, which shows you right across the island of Ireland where projects have been funded, how much has been allocated across the 6 calls so far. It'll give you the lists of all of the projects and the partners that have been funded to date. It'll give you some good examples of projects that have been funded. It's really well worth your while to go to that section of the website and familiarize yourself with everything that is on that section. It really is a fantastic resource for everything that has happened on DTIF so far. So again, I would really urge you to familiarize yourself with that section of the website to get a sense of what has happened before in DTIF, what a typical partner that can get through the process and receive funding looks like, and so on. And many of these names you will already know.
Yeah.
Is there a preferred time frame for project completion? It must be completed within 3 years from the commencement date as specified in the consortium agreement.
I can take the next one there. Who typically leads the consortium? Startup, SME, RPO, etc. There's no requirement for anyone in particular to lead. Anybody can lead. But our stats have our previous projects. I think they've been about 70% SME led, 20% RPO led. But again, there's no requirement for an SME or an RPO to lead it.
Okay, and can it
sorry,
state?
just to
Sorry,
add to that, Claire,
yeah.
Just to it's something that gets asked about, is there a requirement for an RPO to be involved? And there isn't. It can be company to company consortium, so there's no inherent need for an RPO to be involved.
Yeah. The next one, can a state-owned large company participate in a consortium? Essentially, if that company is a client of an agency, of one of the agencies within the call, yes, but if it isn't, no. And the next one, can international organisations officially support the application without drawing funds? And with an example of a sports organisation, that would be an end user. We've made it very clear in the guide for applicants that it's only the applicant organisations who are Ireland based, only the applicants who are described in the work plan and drawing down funding here in Ireland can participate. So that's not a possibility. And the related or similar, perhaps, multinationals based in Ireland using their internal global research functions laboratories to support their projects. What we state in the guide is that the majority of the work must take place in Ireland. And so we want to see very clear research and development teams in operation in Ireland. Now, there may be requirements to do something at a very specialised site overseas, for example, which might be a smaller component of the project. So it's the type of thing that you could think it through within your own multinational. How long after the application would we expect the interviews to happen? So I think you've dealt with that, Jackie, that really we're expecting this over a sort of a 3-month process. So you get your application in, we'll need to check eligibility, get it out for a remote evaluation, get the feedback back, give you time to come to your panel, to prepare and come to your panel interview. So we're expecting a couple of months minimum, I would say, to do that and to give you the time so that people come into the panels very well prepared. The next one is an interesting question. How many of our 104 projects are currently having a commercial impact? We're at the very interesting stage, I would say, in DTIF of having our first projects coming to an end. Now, you must bear in mind that they're industrial research projects, primarily from the earlier calls. And so we are actively chasing impact. We're looking to see the outcomes, but the types of outcomes that we've seen to date are around patent filings, first in human trial activity, very interesting results with patients that are actively ongoing. Jackie, I don't know if you have others that you'd like to describe, but I suppose the point I'm making is they're the first outcomes of research projects, as opposed to, you know, if you're looking for commercial impact with multiple sales figures or something, that's not where we're at with DTIF. Not yet, not yet. It's a very early stage in what was a new fund in the country.
Again, I would point people to the department's website for some examples of some fantastic projects that have come to fruition as a result of DTIF. It's not an objective of the fund, but again, if you go through the list of companies that have taken part, some of the acquisitions, it's not something that we entirely welcome necessarily, but some of the acquisitions that have taken part in the portfolio have been truly phenomenal. So having a DTIF approval and undertaking a project under DTIF can prove to be hugely impactful for the companies in particular taking part.
And maybe the next one is slightly related. People are beginning to look for impact from DTIF. So, you know, what outcomes leading to what success factors is Ireland Inc. looking for? Jobs, corporate tax revenue, exports. I would say DTIF is in keeping with all of the sort of strategic aims of the Department of Enterprise, Trade and Employment and the agencies such as Enterprise Ireland and IDA Ireland and UDROS, of course, as a participant in DTIF. Of course, we're looking for all of these things. We have a particular focus on jobs, high quality jobs, of course. But of course, you know, an agency like Enterprise Ireland is sitting there with very clear export aims. So it's any or all of those. And as I say, you know, I temper that with the point that DTIF is funding industrial research and experimental development. You know, it's one very particular stage along the way for development. In terms of something like jobs, we've seen very interesting teams being put together to complete the projects. And actually, we've seen some very nice growth of company teams subsequent to the project. And so, you know, there are first inklings of the impacts of DTIF.
I don't see any more questions there.
I think we've answered them all so far.
Well, as I say, as a team, we're available to answer as many questions as you have. No question is too small, so keep them coming. We'll run over time if we need to keep them coming. But equally, as a team, we're available from here on to work with our applicants. Let's see another one coming in. I'm not sure that I quite understand the next one. Can enterprises only consortium, collaborate with RPOs during the DTIF project on funded research or consultancy basis and claim the cost? So I think what you're suggesting is you've companies only in your consortium and you're looking to do a subcontract to a university of some kind of aspect of the project. You have the potential within the project to subcontract various activities within it. One thing I would say is that if you were bringing in something through consultancy that's a core piece of the research activity, I wonder why that partner is not in as a core research partner. You know, what would be the justification for not bringing them in, as opposed to a subcontract of some activity or some piece of analysis or something like that that's needed for the project. Jackie, I don't know if you've anything that you'd add based on what we've seen to date.
Not really. I'm not 100% sure of the question, but as we've all said, if there's any question that you have that you feel we haven't answered sufficiently on this webinar, or indeed any question that hasn't been asked that you want an answer to, reach out to us. Either reach out to us individually or send us an email to the DTIF mailbox, which is dtif@enterprise-ireland.com, and one of us will come back to you to discuss in greater detail what it is you're looking to find out and how we can get that information to you.
Yeah. I see another one, a public body such as the City Council, which I think we've already answered. No, companies that are agency clients, Enterprise Ireland, IDA Ireland, or Udaros are the companies that are eligible to participate.
The next one is, sorry.
I think it's if an application is successful and progresses through that 3 million window, would funding be released soon after that, i.e. in 2024, or is there a requirement to wait until the end of the rolling call to draw down funds? No, I mean, the point about a rolling call is that we will be, the process we go through, the projects will be approved on a rolling basis, and we'll hopefully get them up and running then as soon as we can after the approval. So there's no waiting for anybody.
I'll jump to the next one. Are there examples of past successful proposals available on the DTIF website? No, there aren't examples of proposals. There are certainly examples of successful projects. I don't think we could release no, we certainly couldn't release proposals. That would be entirely up to the consortia themselves to be able to share those in the public domain. We couldn't do that. Is it possible or advisable to specify some individual team members in the application? You can, under the criteria of the strength of the collaboration, perhaps you could certainly do that if you think it's going to, add to your to your proposal. It certainly isn't a requirement in the proposal stage to indicate who the team members are. However, if you successfully are approved funding, well then at that stage we enter a contract negotiation stage with you, where we provide you with cost sheets, and in that situation where you are claiming salaries of the researchers working on the project, at that point, if those people are already in your company and are taking part in the project, we would look for their names at that stage. But not as part of the proposal. It's not a requirement.
Yeah, and maybe coming back to the examples of the successful proposals, we always say to people, Ireland is a very small place where people know each other. Take a look at who around you is already using the fund. Talk to them, have a cup of coffee with them, walk through how did they do their proposal, what did it look like? And for example, there are a number of consultants who work primarily with the small companies in Ireland, putting in applications to large funding opportunities. Talk to them, for example. We're all here to help and to make sure that DTIF is a real success. So what we want to see is quality proposals coming in. Looks like we're there again, unless anyone has a final question.
Like I mentioned earlier, the webinar, as well as any FAQs from the webinar, will be put up on our website as well. So you'll have the information there.
Brilliant. Well, listen, that looks like that's it. So just to finish from me, a big thank you to the team. The point we've been making throughout is that we're here to help. For companies, your development advisors within the agencies are also there to help, really to determine, is DTIF for you right now at this stage of development? And so all of the information will be made publicly available. You'll see it through the Department of Enterprise, Trade and Employment website primarily, but you'll see it through all of our social media and various events that we're participating in, and all of that over the next while. I see new posts. They're all just thank yous rather than questions. So I think, Claire, if you're okay with that, we'll stop recording and we'll leave it at that for today.
Yeah, absolutely. Thank you very much, everyone.
Thanks a million.
Thanks, everyone.
Thank you.
Bye.